Albert Pike said, and I quote, "There is in nature one most potent force by means whereof a single man who could possess himself of it and should know how to direct it could revolutionize and change the face of the world." This is the force that the Nazis and their inner occult circle were so desperately trying to unleash upon the world, for which this is the force, ladies and gentlemen, that the Nazis and their inner occult circle were so desperately trying to unleash upon the world, for which the Vril Society had apparently groomed Hitler. A manifestation of the great work promulgated by the adepts of secret societies throughout the ages, the Vril Society latched onto a very old archetype already in the minds of alchemists and magicians, which was only reinterpreted by Leighton in the light of the age of occult revival and scientific progress. The idea of mutation and transformation into a higher form of a god-man was envisioned through the Vril-Ya in Buller Leighton's The Coming Race. Leighton himself was an initiate of the Rosicrucians and was well versed in the arcane esoteric philosophies and of course the greatest advances in science of his day. Through his romantic works of fiction, this is a quote, "Through his romantic works of fiction, he expressed the conviction that there are beings endowed with superhuman powers. These beings will supplant us and bring about a formidable mutation in the elect of the human race." That is another quote from Morning of the Magicians by Jacques Bergier. So, as we move along here, it's still a lot to cover. I mean, a lot. Please stay tuned. This is important information. It's all verifiable, it's all documented, and it's all true. All we have to do is put the pieces together, and we know who to point the fingers at in the New World Order today, because this will affect you. Whether or not you believe this or I believe this, the people in control of the world, the power people, the money people, the decision makers, believe it and live it, and are working to create this new Atlantis, this new world order. Now, the idea of mutation and transformation into the higher form of a god-man is very dangerous. The moment we speak of an elect and illumined class, which is above the general populace, you inevitably encounter racism and classism as we see today. Everyone's screaming about the rich people, but they don't realize that they're really targeting poor people compared to the rich people, targeting people like Trump or people like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, I mean. Are you kidding? These people are peasants compared to the personages that control things behind the scenes. Quote, "We must be aware of this notion of a mutation," Bergier warns. "It crops up again with Hitler, and it is not extinct today." And that's my warning to you. These quotes by Bergier and Paul Wells were written in the 1960s. But today, the philosophy is, sadly, once again in the forefront of popular culture. The New World Order is under direct influence and guidance of the New Age movement, a hodgepodge of occult doctrines and dangerous socialism, which hides under a cover of spiritual enlightenment. Theosophy is considered the main foundation, and its founder, Madame Blavatsky, was a great admirer of Leighton's In the Occult Conspiracy. Michael Howard writes about the compatibility of the two philosophies. Quote, "Blavatsky had read Bulwer-Lytton's novels and was very impressed by their occult content, especially Zanoni and The Last Days of Pompeii. The latter was published in 1834 and dealt with a time between early Christianity and the mysteries of Isis in Italy in the 1st century AD. Blavatsky's esotericism was virulently anti-Christian. The racial ideas of Madame Blavatsky concerning root races and the emergence of a spiritually developed type of human being in the Aquarian Age were avidly accepted by the 19th century German nationalists who mixed theosophical occultism with anti-Semitism and the doctrine of the racial supremacy of the Aryan or Indo-European peoples." End quote. So we can see this connection. We can see this today, how they're using these deceptions to bring about this New Age movement. This do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, this perceived fairness and equality and all of these leftist ideologies. No different. It is the same order. It is the same agenda that led to the rise of Hitler, that led to the Bolshevik Revolution, that led to all of the conflicts before and since.
The ideology of the Thule Society was built on resurrecting pre-Christian pagan German culture. Within that ideology, the elimination of non-Aryan races assumed a similar importance. Heading the list were the blacks, gypsies, and Jews. These words from one of the Thule Society's publications are an indication of this. Arrest the Jews. That will bring peace to our country. That is why the Thule leader Sebottendorf refused to accept the chancellorship of Kurt Eisner, one of the Jews he regarded as the eternal foe. He stated this quite openly. Yesterday we witnessed the destruction of all that we believe in and attach importance to. Instead of princes with whom we share a blood bond, our deadly enemies rule, the Jews. We cannot know what will be born out of such chaos. So long as I hold the iron hammer, I shall lead Thule to war. Our discipline is Germanic discipline, and Germanic means nobility. Our God is Walvather. Our emblem is Aryan, the first flame, the sun, the eagle. From today our symbol shall be the eagle. It will remind us that we may have to die if we are to live.
Now take notice to the previous mention of the sun in the video presentation. Sun worship plays a significant role in these Luciferian secret societies, and the sun god has many names. You'll find this also in movies. Constantly, Hollywood is using references to this Luciferian doctrine. It is all part of the conditioning, similar to the conditioning that Hitler and the Nazis put the German people under, accepting the pagan Satanists, basically turning the people into willing participants in Satanism. Or Luciferianism is really what it is. Lucifer is what they believe is the true one and only God. Lucifer and Satan could be considered two separate entities or one, depending upon your point of view. In essence, it is the epitome of evil, and they believe it to be good. They believe the end justifies the means, so long as they achieve their goal of this new Atlantis. So take notice of the mention of the sun. The secret societies worship the sun. They've been in many examples of this shown in our own pop culture. Symbols of the sun. It's ancient and goes back millennia to this dawn of time. Humankind, I should say. Now, the sun god has many names: Atum, Horus, Ra, Osiris, and Lucifer, the light bearer, son of the morning star. All of these combined beliefs make up the Luciferian doctrine. The true rulers of our world believe that Lucifer is the one and only true God, that Satan was unjustly cast out of heaven by a cruel and vindictive God who denied Adam and Eve the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, denying them the fact that they too could become gods. And this is what these Gnostic Luciferians are working to build. This is the New Age. This is the great work. The New Age, the Age of Aquarius, the Age of Enlightenment. This is what they believe, and this is what they're working for. Did you know that Hitler was a member of the Thule Society? And G.W. Bush, and G.H.W. Bush, and Prescott Bush were all members of Yale Skull and Bones, which are both Bavarian German secret societies, both Skull and Bones and Thule Society, and they are both known as the Brotherhood of Death. The Thule Society and Yale's Skull and Bones are both Bavarian secret societies. They are both known as the Brotherhood of Death, and they work, as with all secret societies, for the same goal of creating what they perceive to be a utopian world through secular humanism. A new age, this whole new age movement with the crystals and all this other Gaia religion. A new Atlantis for a new age, where through science and intellect, mankind itself will evolve into God. So we will become God. That is what they're working for. You must understand that these are just two of the many secret societies that are all part of the same order, and they are, indeed, working for the same goal. In Freemasonry, it is called the Great Work. These facts and correlations are scant recorded in history books and virtually absent from the discussion of the Nazis and the Holocaust. Here are just a few examples. After forcing many Jews to be baptized and then referring them as Marranos, which is swine, after an inquisition of which some 700 Marranos were burnt at the stake for showing signs of Jewish taint, Spain expels all Jews from the country. In 1492, the same year, the New World was found. Okay, the New World was created. The same thing's happening. In 1485, 1497, and 1519, Jews are expelled from Warsaw and Krakow, Poland, then Portugal and Regensburg, Germany. 1555 to 1559, Pope Paul IV restricts Jews to ghettos and decrees that they are to wear distinctive headgear. Does this sound familiar? In 1566 through 1572, Pope St. Pius V expels Jews from the Papal States, allowing some to remain in Rome's ghettos and in Ancona for commercial reasons. In 1592, Pope Clement VIII includes a ban on all Jewish books in the expanded edition of forbidden books. In 1826, Pope Leo XII decrees that Jews are to be confined to ghettos and their property is to be confiscated. Well, where did I hear about that? Some 100 years later, 115 years later, 112 years later. Also, up until the 1930s, the Jews that were in the Vatican area were confined to Rome's ghetto. It wasn't the Vatican. Again, the Vatican wasn't created as we know it today, called the Vatican City, until the city-state was established in 1929. History repeats itself, as it is repeating itself today in yet another form. Did you know that Hitler's New World Order is the same New World Order called for by George H.W. Bush on September 11th, 1990? And it's the same New World Order called for by Pope Benedict and now Pope Francis. Speaking of the New World Order Pope, did you know Vatican City is a city-state surrounded by Rome? London and Washington, D.C. are also city-states. They are actual foreign sovereign countries to the land they occupy. That's right. Washington, D.C. is a separate country. It's not part of the United States. It is owned by the same personages behind the scenes that no one knows about that owns the Vatican and London. These black nobility, the families of the wealthiest of the wealthy.